As we all know, I am a chronic doom scroller. Oftentimes I run into like the craziest people imaginable. Think about the most nuttiest person you could think of. I ran into them on my scroll.
I bought an after-hours nightclub while bipolar manic back in 2016.
What a sense. First of all, as somebody who is bipolar, I understand the mania of like anything is possible, I can do anything, which is why I'm afraid of money plus mania. Because this is shit I would do. Yeah, it's when I'm about to buy an after hours just because I can. We've all done that before. All right, Jalea, let's lock in, twin. Let's lock in.
You ain't thorough.
I scrolled through this guy's account. His whole account is him telling his story. The ad name is Bipolar Guy A Loving Life. His whole account is just him telling different stories about his bipolar era and like that.
I could have cared less about making money. All I cared about is partying as hard as I could in my own club. And I made the worst possible hiring decisions. First, I hired my former dealer, Ciroc Poppy.
As somebody who also deals with mania, once you look back at certain parts of the mania, you realize I should have known I was crazy. Like having a friend named Ciroc Poppy who was your junk dealer and lived in your spare bedroom in your house. That should have been all the indication he needed that, oh, I'm losing my fucking mind. Why am I hanging out with Ciroc Poppy of all niggas? Why is Ciroc Poppy my right-hand man? He said the year was 2016. Ciroc wasn't even a cool drink in 2016. He was naming himself after dead spirits. Like these beverages weren't getting a drink at a high volume at the club anymore. He was living off thing running around with the name like Ciroc Poppy. Calling your roommate Ciroc Poppy instead of Greg is crazy. To be fair, if your roommate introduced himself as Ciroc Poppy, what you gonna be like? I'm not calling you YBG?
What's your name?
YBG down.
I'm not calling you YBG.
If my dog introduced himself as Ciroc Poppy, he's Ciroc Poppy now. Now, I'm not calling him Ciroc Poppy because that's crazy, but he definitely getting CP from me. Like, he not getting the full Govo, but I'm assuring it to CP. I'm outside with my dog. With who? CP. Niggas gonna be like, chow. No, Ciroc Poppy, then I gotta go further. But I am sure that the CP, and then once niggas know who CP is, like, it's ball up top. Now we not doing that. That's hate. That's good names.
Lived in my spare bedroom as the general manager one night, and funds ended up being pretty low. So I confronted him and he sucker punched me in the face. So had to kick him out of the condo.
You hired a cokehead named Ciroc Poppy, and then when he was stealing money, you confronted him about that and thought it wasn't going to end with you getting punched in the face. To me, the kicker on top of the whole story, him being like, I had to kick him out of the condo. I forgot he lived with you. He was double dipping off scamming and robbing you blind, my nigga. Why is CP your GM? Let's start there. You fucked up. Shit was going to go bad.
Soon after that, all my other employees quit. They hated working for me with the way I managed things.
I want you to know, when I started my podcast company Manically, this exact same thing happened to me. Par for the course when you start a company while you manic, broski.
When I got there one night, I had no employees, and there's a line starting to form around the club. So I went outside, didn't know what else to do, and ended up hiring people on the spot who were in line if they had any bar or club experience.
They staged the walkout successfully. You have no more employees. There's a line forming around the block. And instead of saying, hey man, we're closed tonight, you go to the line of people who are coming to your after hours. Mind you, it's an after spot. These are not good people. These are not good individuals. None of these motherfuckers have the wherewithal to properly run a restaurant. They're all high on cocaine.
Also a really dumb decision. It was a smaller club, so I didn't need a ton of employees. Held like 300 people.
I like him still trying to rationalize it though. In his head, he thought, I made soul food. Yeah, I'm saying I didn't have all the ingredients to make what I wanted to make, but like I made something still. Like he's still trying to rationalize this shit as if this shit ever made sense, broski. None of this story connects to you being like in a sane mind state.
But yeah, I hired the worst possible people. There was Parker, who I made the GM. He ended up being a heroin addict, didn't show up to work the next time. He was fast asleep on my couch and no one could wake him up.
There is a part of the story he just missed. Okay, Parker's a heroin addict. He didn't show up to work the next day. How did he wind up sleeping on your couch though? Why do you keep inviting niggas into your home? Which I feel him. I also be inviting niggas in my home. I'm trying to tell you, I see similarities between he and I. You be inviting niggas in your home, gang. You be mad trusting of people. Somebody asks, how did this nigga get the money to do this shit? He's a trust fund baby, obviously. That's all it is. Like, his family come from money. So he had no problem, like, fucking off money.
Then there was Antonio, who ended up pulling a knife on me, so had to let him go. Then there was one known as T-Rex.
You can't have a nigga named Ciroc Popping on your team and a nigga named T-Rex on your team. That's like, this a wicked squad. Insane niggas you got around. How do you even get the nickname T-Rex? Like, what about you as a human leads to niggas being like, oh, your name T-Rex? What, he had a big head and little arms? Shout out to my man, Apex Predator. You saw T-Rex fucking drop a Molly and some girl drink one night. You said, oh yeah, he's a predator. Apex. The fuck? How does one end up with that name? Fuck, you going around biting niggas and shit?
Had a warrant out for his arrest, I found out later, for counterfeiting money. So who knows what he was doing with the cash from my club. But he introduced me to Old Girl, who was a hooker who I let stay in my spare bedroom instead of Ciroc Poppy and do tricks in exchange for watching the place while I was gone, because I'd lost too many keys and was in trouble with my landlord.
He said that T-Rex introduced him to Old Girl. We all know that when you calling somebody Old Girl, you're not really good with shorty. You don't really know her that well, or you're not trying to say her name, you trying to keep it low key. But folks who know Old Girl know Old Girl. Same thing with Old Boy, like, you mean Old Boy over there, you mean? Usually it's a sign of like tension of sorts or something like that. I think the thing with this Old Girl, I think this is what folks called her. Niggas would see her outside, be like, oh yeah, there go Old Girl over there. Old Girl was out here prostituting herself, selling puss out of his high-rise condo. This nigga would come home from a night of doing coke or whatever, and be random Johns in his crib. You come home and it's just like some random nigga in your crib and your refrigerator. Old Girl in the back room. Yet another person's house. He keep letting niggas in his house. He's never gonna learn. That's his vibe. A true home of misfits.
Of course, stupid idea, because later lost a bunch of stuff in my condo, was robbed, probably by her regulars. And then, worst decision of all is I hired one Meth Head David as the final general manager of my club.
He called the nigga Meth Head David, which sounds like the name you give to somebody post knowing them. Inside stories you tell about your life, you will call that person Meth Head David. But knowing the names of his friend group, aka Ciroc Poppy, T-Rex, and Old Girl, Meth Head David might have always been his name, and he still hired this nigga as the manager. Meth Head David might have been his giving name, his surname. He walk up to motherfuckers and be like, hi, how are you doing? My name is Meth Head David. And he said, manager.
And he ended up stealing my car, stealing money from the club, and stealing a bunch of my shirts.
That last line is petty as shit. He's still upset about them shirts. Stealing money from my club, stealing jewelry, but most importantly, he stole my favorite t-shirt.
Right after that is when the club actually went under. I ended up blowing through all my money, losing everything, and became homeless. So the club was the dumbest decision.
W him, bro. Like I said, this guy whole account is just him telling his story about being bipolar and the life he lived. To be fair, this is the kind of white boy I see at the club and I'd be like, let's get cool with him. There's another video here called Ciroc Poppy Girl Calls the Cops on Us. I need to watch this.
When my former dealer, Ciroc Poppy, lived in...
Stop. Why he say it like that, bro? Why he say it like that? Why he say like he's on like NBC, Dateline? Old Fat Dom, you gonna fit right in. Word. I wouldn't call myself Old Fat Dom. I just call myself DOM, and I would make niggas spell it too. If I was running around with a cocaine group of people, a ragtag cocaine group, I would only be like, yeah, my name DOM. They'd be like, oh, your name Dom. No, DOM, you gotta spell it. And he would, inside his stories, talk about me and always spell it. He'd be like, the DOM. He would spell it.
My spare bedroom so I could get a discount on blow.
He wasn't even getting the cocaine for free, chat. Somebody in chat said earlier, oh no, the coke dealer wasn't living there for free. He was giving him coke. He wasn't getting the coke for free. He was getting the discount. My nigga bipolar guy was giving CP free room and board, and CP couldn't give him cocaine on the eye. 8-ball couldn't be the payment for rent. I gotta still pay for it.
The Ciroc Boys, as we were known, would normally head to Ciroc Boy brunch.
Nobody called you niggas the Ciroc Boys, bro. Hold on, stop. Nobody calls a nigga the Ciroc. They did not call them the Ciroc Boys, bro. They did. It was 2016, bro. You can't be the Ciroc Boys in 2016, bro. That's nuts.
Would normally head to Ciroc Boy brunch most Sundays. The Ciroc Boys in training typically weren't allowed to attend. So this particular Sunday, it was me, my buddy Will, and Ciroc Poppy.
Why is your buddy Will hanging out with Ciroc Poppy? Why do I have trainees?
Per usual, showed up fashionably late. Looking back, I realized he was much smarter than he let on, because I think the reason he'd show up late was to take my plate of food. He knew that I'd go there and excitedly load up my plate with the buffet, and because I'd done so much substantial substances and blow over the weekend, I wasn't able to eat it. I'd just stir it around and look at it, and he'd get there and ask for it. By that time, I'd given up typically, so he'd have free food every Sunday.
Tell me, did you say his buddy Will would show up to eat his leftovers? Is that what I'm hearing? Like there was a nigga who came around just to eat his scraps?
This particular Sunday, my buddy Will and I bought a bunch of blow off him, and per usual, we headed to Club Rio, where they normally did these Sunday foam pool parties. While we're there, though, we find out from another friend that Ciroc Poppy's girl had called the cops on us because they were in a fight.
Do you think he knows Ciroc Poppy's real name? I'm not gonna lie, chat. I'm going no. I don't think he ever found out his actual government name. I think he only knows him as Ciroc Poppy. And by the way, I don't think Ciroc Poppy has gone by Ciroc Poppy in at least 5 years. And 5 years is being generous. I think 2021, he finally hung up Ciroc Poppy. I'm no longer Ciroc Poppy. I'm father of alcohol now.
Not long after, though, I blew through all my money due to bad decisions while bipolar manic and an addict, lost everything, and became homeless until I finally hit rock bottom and got the help I needed.
Don't try to end that shit with like this wholesome message of like, you know, but I got better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Soon after I hit rock bottom, nigga, you were hanging with a guy named Ciroc Poppy. We don't care that you don't care that you're better. Call Ciroc Poppy right now. Get him on the line. I want to talk to bro. Ciroc Poppy definitely calls himself white passing. Calling yourself Ciroc Poppy while being white passing is possibly like the most like Cuban thing I think I've ever heard in my fucking life, by the way. I don't think it gets much more Cuban than that. That's a really Cuban experience.